Hello, and thanks for joining today's webinar from Real Story Group. Very exciting topic today that we're going to cover. We're going to look at where does personalization fit in the modern MarTech stack. My name is Scott Dill with Real Story Group. I'm the Director of Business Development here, and also have our VP of Research and Advisory, Apoorv Durga, who's going to take you through the heart of today's presentation. But as we get started, I just want to mention a couple of quick housekeeping items of note, and then take a little bit of a background on Real Story Group. But I do see a number of subscribers on the line today, so thanks for, of course, being a customer and for joining us today. You will be able to have access to this webinar in your subscriber library, so that should be available for you in a couple of days. And then for everyone who's here today, you will get a copy of the slides from today's presentation. So keep an eye out in your inbox for that, and we'll get that to you within the next couple of days. Also wanted to mention that we will have time at the end for questions. So if you have any questions or anecdotes you'd like to share, please feel free to enter those into the questions tab in your GoToWebinar control panel, and we'll get to those at the end of today's session. As I mentioned, I do see a number of our subscribers on the line, but I also see a lot of new names as well. And so just want to give you a little bit of background about Real Story Group. We've been at this for over 23 years now as an analyst firm, and you may be familiar with some of the other firms that are out there, some of the more household names. But when we started this company, our founder, Tony Byrne, did so along the lines of more of a consumer reports, where we don't do any work for the vendors that we cover in any way, shape, or form, okay? So our focus is on technology users and buyers. So whether a vendor subscribes to our research or not doesn't really matter to us in terms of how we're gonna evaluate them in our research. And so what we're trying to do is make sure that you're making an educated decision when you're selecting the right vendor for what it is that you're trying to do. And so within our evaluations, within our webinars and our conversations, we pull no punches in talking about what the vendors do well, but also where they might fall short for you. We're in the MarTech space. We cover 10 different areas that are represented here in our famous or perhaps infamous vendor map. And so you see that there are a lot of vendors that kind of overlap within those different technology areas, but certainly there are a lot of solutions on the periphery, and typically that's actually where we see most of the innovation taking place. And so the line that we're going to focus on today is what you see there in the rectangle. We're going to focus on personalization platforms and how that all fits into this MarTech stack. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Apoorv to take us through the presentation. Apoorv?
Thank you, Scott. Thank you very much. So personalization has been a fundamental element of successful marketing strategies for years now, right? So the idea itself isn't new. The rise of advanced machine learning and AI techniques has reignited interest in crafting more refined and impactful personalized experiences. However, we've seen that implementing personalization effectively is far from easy, even for large organizations with extensive resources, as these examples will illustrate, right? So it can be pretty challenging, especially when aiming to deliver a seamless omni-channel customer experience across multiple channels and devices. Right, so in this session, then we will delve into how personalization fits into your MarTech stack and explore the methods that enterprises are using to tackle these challenges. So this slide shows a sort of a reference architecture or reference model that we often use with our clients, right? So you have channels on the top. These are the engagement channels that your users use to interact with you. And then you have the interaction and delivery environments, as well as your engagement platforms. Now, these kind of stacks are not uncommon. Of course, the exact subset of these platforms will vary across different organizations, but the broad idea is very similar. Now, a common topic of discussion is, where should personalization live? Should it be a part of your WCM or CMS here in green? Should it be part of your marketing automation or email management or email marketing? Should it be part of your e-commerce platform? And the most common answer is that it lives everywhere, right? So that's probably a bit of an exaggeration, but the fact is that it lives at several different places, or it's part of several different platforms. So as an example, consider the case of rules for personalizing content. You may have a set of personalization rules for your marketing automation or email marketing, and then you have another set of personalization rules in your site management or CMS or WCM or other content systems. Similarly, you may also need personalization as part of your e-commerce engine for product recommendation, right? So you see, you can have personalization as part of several types of broader platforms. Now, what's wrong with that, you might ask, right? So for one, there is no easy way to standardize or even align those rules everywhere, right? So every content and MarTech platform has some sort of personalization capabilities, and the logic is not consistent. Essentially, your delivery logic is now trapped in individual delivery channels, right? And that creates silos of content, silos of rules, silos of personalization algorithms, and so on, right? And as a result, your customers and prospects don't really enjoy an integrated, consistent experience, or an experience that is consistent across channels that they are using to interact with you. Right. So I think by now you will agree that implementing omni-channel personalization is indeed hard, but there are several approaches that we commonly see amongst our customers. There are three approaches that are described on this slide, right? So these are the three places in your stack, or in your MarTech stack, where you can see a personalization service, right? So of course there is no single right answer. There is no one standard thing for everyone, right? So you could mix and match different strategies for different scenarios. These three are personalization as part of individual channel. So that's number one. Then personalization via your data platform. So perhaps your customer data platform or journey orchestration engine. And finally, number three is personalization as a dedicated service, or personalization platform as a dedicated platform. So we will look at what these axes, size of circle, color represent in a bit. But let's look at these three alternatives first. The first one is part of channel, right? So in this case, personalization is essentially part of the channel that end users are using to interact with you, right? So that could be your website, your mobile app, your marketing automation system, right? So essentially, this is like status quo, right? You are optimizing your existing investments as much as possible, right? So in some cases, this strategy works well, primarily because it's the easiest and fastest way to grow into personalized experiences. There could be other benefits also, like tight integration with the underlying functionality and so on. Now this is how personalization has been implemented traditionally, right? So there have been a number of WCM or CMS platforms, or back in the day when portal systems used to rule the scene, right? So a lot of those systems had some sort of rule-based personalization, right? So in those cases, content managers also doubled as targeting managers, right? And that used to work well, right? But the main problem here is that this requires channel or platform specific rules as well as decision logic, right? So you would still need a personalization system for different channels. You also have different set of personalization rules, like I mentioned earlier, for your content, for your email, for your mobile app, and so on. right? So of course you can now use machine learning based personalization instead of rule based personalization, but the approach still remains very channel specific. Therefore, the main drawback is that you lose uniformity, consistency, and standardization across channels. The next option is to have personalization as part of an omni-channel data platform. Um, Common choices here are personalization as part of CDP or customer data platforms, or personalization as part of a journey orchestration engine or journey orchestration system. Right now several CDPs and almost all journey orchestration engines provide some sort of personalization capabilities built on top of their data platform or built on top of their data management capabilities. Right now, in some cases, these capabilities may prove light, but the main benefit is that you get the benefit of operating those capabilities close to the customer data, which is really important for personalization. Right. So for example, if someone's status changes, like a subscription expires or someone moves from one loyalty tier to another tier, you can immediately send them a personalized offer via notification or email. Right. So this approach essentially allows you to abstract functionality away from channels and brings it closer to customer data. Right. And if you have unified customer data, you can apply consistent personalization strategies across different channels. So those are the key advantages. Of course, because now you're moving away from channels, therefore weaker integration with channels could lead to issues such as duplication of personalized content, blocks between your content management system and this system, right? So you are going to have to duplicate that content across your data platform and content management system. Finally, the third approach is a dedicated personalization engine, right? So this approach essentially offers you a cleaner architecture with separation of concerns, right? Which means that each system is doing what it is best at, right? But again, it could be light in terms of integration with channels. Uh, Also, remember that personalization always works best when you have unified customer data. And so this approach will lead some way to have access to those unified cleaned customer profiles. But again, the major benefit here is that these dedicated personalization engines provide you a whole range of personalization capabilities, from multiple types of recommendations to testing of different types, experimentation, A/B testing, and so on. Right. So this is the summary of what we just discussed. Right. So as you can see, there are broadly three approaches, and they have their own trade-offs as well as pros and cons. The two key trade-offs are the y-axis and x-axis here. Right. So on the y-axis, you have the quality of omnichannel experience, and on the x-axis, you have the ease of initial implementation. Right. So those are the key trade-offs, but these three approaches also differ in terms of some other parameters, such as the extent of capabilities. So for example, dedicated platforms provide you a much more expansive set of capabilities that you won't get as part of individual channels, right? So those are some of the trade-offs. Now, of course, all these three approaches are not mutually exclusive, and we often see customers using a combination of these approaches. So maybe for some low-hanging fruits or for some tactical wins, you might use channel-specific personalization, whereas for long-term or more strategic use cases, you might end up using a dedicated platform. Now, there are several architectural and product possibilities here. One common thing that we see across our customers is that when they start off with channel specific personalization, but for the long term they always want to move to a data platform or a dedicated engine, right? So as they mature in terms of their capabilities, they also want to mature in terms of how they use personalization. Okay, so that was a lot of lot of theory about the personalization technology, but let's look at the personalization marketplace. Who are the key vendor types, key categories, etc. Right. So this is the personalization marketplace as we see it. Uh, uh, a couple of disclaimers here. One, as analysts, we like to put everything in boxes. In real life, often there are overlaps, right? So there are overlaps, but categorizing them in this way helps us visualize the marketplace, right? So there are four categories of vendors here. There are the MarTech suite vendors, right? The big mega software vendors, so Adobe, Salesforce, Optimizely, Oracle, Sitecore, etc. These are the vendors who have a broad MarTech offering with personalization as part of that. Really distribute vendors. Then you have independent players. They are not as big as suite vendors. They play mostly in the MarTech space, but personalization is a key capability that they offer. Then you have the niche personalization vendors. These are the vendors that focus mostly on personalization, right? So they are standalone personalization tools. Their core focus is personalization. That's what they mostly do. And finally, you have the niche testing players, right? So these are players that focus on specific aspect of personalization, which is A/B testing or experimentation. Now, remember that this is an indicative sort of listing. You might think that why this vendor is missing or why that vendor is missing. So that always happens, but this is really an indicative list, not an exhaustive list. So this is the marketplace of vendors that provide personalization as a key capability, as a dedicated service. But like we said, personalization can also be done via CDPs, right? So there are several CDP products that now offer some sort of personalization capabilities. So in particular, in this CDP marketplace chart that you see on this slide, the vendors in the decisioning oriented independence category, the top right box, and some vendors in the activation oriented independence. These are some vendors who provide some sort of personalization capabilities. Now, the extent of those capabilities can vary, but we often see a lot of clients using their CDPs for personalization offering, for personalization capabilities. The key advantage here is that your personalization is very close to customer data, right? So that's the key advantage. Journey orchestration engines also provide the personalization capabilities. This is a category of vendors that became really popular 3 or 4 years back, but then they really didn't take off as much as we had expected them to. But we see a renewed interest in some of these vendors again, right? So these are some of the vendors that you could keep in mind for doing journey orchestration along with personalization. Okay, so another question that keeps coming up is that what about AI for personalization, right? So generative AI has been generating so much hype, right? So much in news that everybody wants to know how they can use AI for personalization, right? And AI-based recommendations have been popular. This is a screenshot that we saw earlier also, right? But the thing is that AI-based recommendations can significantly improve your personalization efforts, but they come with their own challenges, as both these examples show. So these systems analyze user behavior and preferences to provide personalized content or product recommendations. But if they are not properly tuned or properly configured, they can make incorrect or biased recommendations, right? So you have to be careful with AI-based recommendation. And we define three different types of AIs. There is generative AI, there is insights AI, and there is decisioning AI, right? And while generative AI is the one that's in news most often, what we are seeing out of our research is that for personalization, often generative AI needs to work with other types of AIs very closely, like right? Like this chart shows, right? So initially it's like a linear process where you cover an opportunity using Insights AI, then decide what to do with it using decisioning AI, and finally create all the variants of content or message using generative AI, right? So you see initially it's a linear process, but then they feed into each other and it sort of becomes a flywheel. So you use Insights to measure how you did on last iteration, learn and adapt your decisions, and then generate better prompts. And this goes and on just like a flywheel. Of course, you have to take care of issues such as hallucinations, content quality, IPR, intellectual property rights issues, and so on. Right. So we have seen a lot of vendors earlier. So often there is a need to do a product selection or vendor selection, and one question is, what do you do? How do you evaluate these products, right? So we can't go get into a detailed selection process in this session, but the key thing to remember is that you should always test before you buy. A lot of these products offer some sort of a trial version, and you should do test them out before you buy. Of course, you should also think of a more empirical, agile, test-based mechanism to do a proper product selection. We can help you with that, and Scott will talk more about it in a later slide. We essentially wrote the book on the right way to select technology. Okay, so here are the key takeaways, just to summarize what I covered in today's session. The first one is that personalization is everywhere. So if you think of a stack and different platforms that make up for this stack, personalization is a capability that is often offered by almost all the platforms within the stack, right? So understanding where and how it fits is really crucial. Once you do that, even then doing omni-channel personalization is challenging, right? So achieving consistency across touch points, whether online, offline, in-store, etc., that requires careful planning and integration. We have seen three different types of personalization approaches. So channel specific personalization, data platform integration via CDP's journey orchestration engine. And the third approach that we saw was using personalization as a dedicated service. Each of them have their own trade-offs, and you need to be able to balance ease of implementation with the quality of the overall omni-channel experience. So those are the key takeaways here. Okay, so I'll hand it over to you, Scott. Back to you while I look at the questions.
Excellent. Great. Thanks, Apoorv. That was really, really helpful and insightful information about personalization. So we have a few different ways that you can engage with us, right? So the most simple and straightforward is you can subscribe to our research. So you can look at these different marketplaces, and if you're looking to select a vendor in the personalization space, you can subscribe to that, get access to vendor evaluations and also decision support tools to get you to the right shortlist and be able to compare the vendors side by side. So that's one approach. The second is really taking a more holistic look at your stack and having Apoorv and the rest of our analyst team do that with you almost as an extension of your team. So in that case, you'd have access to all of our research, but also a bucket of advisory hours where you can have more in-depth conversations about your stack, how all these pieces fit together, and what's the right approach moving forward as you consider omni-channel. We also have an exclusive council of MarTech stack leaders that meets on a quarterly basis, either in person or virtual. So these are folks that not only have access to all of our research and advisory services, but get an opportunity to learn from and network with each other at these quarterly meetings. So it's something that we've been doing for 5 years now, and if it's something you're interested in learning more about, please let me know. We also have some consulting options that you can look into as well. So whether that be product selection or assessing your MarTech stack and helping you to develop a strategic roadmap, that's an option that we can discuss with you as well. So if that's ever something you're interested in looking into in a little more depth, please let me know. You can see my coordinates. It's sdill@realstorygroup.com, or you can reach out to us at explore@realstorygroup.com. You can also download samples of our research, so whether it's the personalization stream, CDPs, or all of the streams, you're welcome to take a look at a chapter from each of these to get a sense of our writing style, our methodology, and how we describe the vendors, their strengths and weaknesses. So with that, I'm going to open things up to questions. I do see one from Corey, who's asking, how does a vendor get on our radar?
Yeah, so usually our research agenda is driven by our council, right? So Scott just talked about our council, that meetings that we do, right? So our council members tell us which vendors to evaluate. That's what we mainly do. But having said that, we often look at other vendors also that might be interesting. So if you think we should include a vendor, please feel free to write to us and we can take a look.
Great. Miko was asking, are you seeing any trends with personalization vendors who go to market with more of an AI first approach, like Evolve or Mutiny or Intellimise?
Yeah, so one thing is that so there are a couple of things there, right? So these AI based vendors do 2 or 3 things that are interesting. One is that all of them are now integrating with some sort of generative AI, right? So I covered about 3 types of AIs there, right? So you essentially need, for personalization, you need more than one AI, right? And all of these AI first personalization vendors often provide you some capabilities for integrating with generative AI, so you can generate thousands or even more types of variants for actually doing what you want to do. So let's say you have used decisioning AI or the algorithm to see what the next best recommendation should be or what the next best messaging should be, and then you use generative AI to generate different variants of that messaging. So that's one trend that we are seeing quite often with those kinds of vendors. The other thing is that almost all of them are trying to build some sort of data management capabilities, or alternatively they are getting better at integrating with customer data platforms for getting access to the unified profile that I mentioned. So those are the 2 things that come to my mind right now.
Great. I see one more here. So Debbie is asking, you mentioned 3 types of AIs. Did the use cases span across those 3?
Yeah, very often, right? So like I said, as analysts, we always try to put things in boxes, but often there are overlaps. So almost all the real life use cases often span across different types of AIs, and therefore it's important that in your environment all the 3 AIs work together or feed into each other, right? And so yes, there is a
Excellent.
strong pull. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, we just hit the half hour, so I want to thank everyone for taking time out of your day to join us for this presentation. We'll be having another session similar to this one that's going to focus more on CDPs next Wednesday. So same time for that. We'll be talking about the right way to select a customer data platform. So certainly hope you can join us for that. And you can always, again, reach out to us anytime if you want to connect on LinkedIn or read some of Apoorv and the rest of our team's posts on LinkedIn and on our blog. Please do so. And with that, for Apoorv, myself, and the rest of the Real Story Group team, thanks for joining us, and hope to see you again at this time next week. Take care.